We live in an age where we can all feel our attention being extracted and destroyed by social media. It's so central to how we experience the world, our politics, our society. I wrote a book about it called The Siren's Call, about how attention became the most endangered resource of our times. It's also an age in which the constantly distracted president himself can't sit still long enough to read a briefing on the war he declared in Iran, so his advisors feed him a diet of curated 2-minute long highlight reels of the day's events. Content one military official described as clips of stuff blowing up. So we learned today from the NBC News reporting. And that reporting came on the same day that a jury handed down a landmark ruling, finding big social media networks responsible for knowingly getting children addicted to their products. A jury in California today concluded that YouTube and Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, deliberately and negligently designed their products to get young users hooked on the apps and shatter her mental health. A lawyer for that social media user, the plaintiff, presented the jury with internal company documents from Meta and YouTube that showed that tech executives knew of and discussed the negative effects of their products on children. The jury awarded that victim $3 million for pain and suffering and another $3 million in punitive damages. And that's not counting the undisclosed terms of the plaintiff's pretrial settlement with TikTok and Snap. Keep in mind, this is all just for one victim in one case. And it comes after Meta was ordered on Tuesday to pay $375 million in a separate New Mexico case, where the company was found in violation of state law because, again, it failed to protect kids, this time from child predators on their apps. Experts say today's jury verdict could be a bellwether predicting the outcome of thousands of similar cases in multiple states. The courts could start to clamp down on big tech and its addictive products the same way they did a few decades ago with big tobacco. Jacob Ward's a veteran technology journalist and the host of the Rip Current podcast. Juliana Arnold's a founding member of the group Parents Rise. Her 17-year-old daughter, Coco, died in 2022 after meeting a man on Instagram who gave her fentanyl. They both join me now. Jacob, I want to just start with you because you've been an observer of this industry, a reporter on it for decades. There is obviously this kind of growing backlash. I think you feel it socially, right? In the peer discussions, people's experience. How significant is what happened today inside that jury room for these companies at the legal and financial level?
I mean, it just couldn't be larger here, Chris. And I really appreciate you having me. And Juliana, it's a real pleasure to be with you, an honor to be with you. So, we have in our world, I think, as parents, stood around at soccer games, right? Stood around at birthday parties and said, geez, what are we going to do about our kids on these phones? And sort of shrugged our shoulders. Everybody can feel what you were describing, this feeling that our attention is slipping away from our kids and that something is being reprogrammed here, but we couldn't really put a name on it. Now, a jury of 12 people, and, I'm saying this as someone who also wrote a book on attention and psychology. I know you think about this very deeply as well, Chris. It turns out there is a name for this stuff. There is science behind it. A lot of those scientists, it turns out, worked inside these companies. And now we have not just a name, we have a liability built around it, a legal theory, a cost of actually treating kids' attention as the product. And the fact that we've transitioned now from a country that very often blames the victim, blames the addict, blames someone who is obese for their problems, now is looking at the design circumstances, right? The design of the product that mined behavior and says no more. That is the end of a social media era, and I would argue the end of an era of childhood as we've come to accept it, Chris.
Bobby Allen is a great NPR tech correspondent, interviewed one of the jurors, gave her name as Victoria, said, we wanted them to feel it. We wanted them to know this was unacceptable. And Juliana is someone who suffered this just incomprehensible loss, but has devoted yourself to accountability, for understanding what happened, and to accountability, and who was at the trial. What did it feel like to get this news today?
We've been on this journey, and we didn't know what to expect with this trial. They told us we could never get to court in the first place, and here we are. And it was a mix. It was very bittersweet, because we're there because the worst thing that ever happened to us was losing our child, and we're there for that reason. And then to hear the testimonies and see the evidence that shows that they knowingly, designed these products and their platforms to actually addict our kids, get them hooked, also amplify their pain and what they're going through as teenagers, and, put profit over their protections. And it was just really hard to hear. So it was a mix of just anger and pain, and then juxtaposed with, a real hope. There was overwhelming hope that there is a path forward that we can help save our next generation of kids. And at least we know now, and parents can make decisions, and now we have to go to the Hill and fight for legislation to protect our children, which we have been doing for the past 3 years. But I feel like now we are armed with the information, the evidence that we didn't have before. Our stories were not enough, obviously, so we're going to make sure that with this evidence, we get some legislation passed.
Juliana just referenced this, Jacob. Just that one of the sort of theories here, and some of the evidence presented, is that part of the means by which you produce this kind of compulsive usage, right, is to promote negative feelings about yourself, that those aren't incidental and in fact are engineered into the platform. I mean, the plaintiff who lives in Chico, California, said she'd begun using social media at age 6. She said the sites caused personal injury, including body dysmorphia, thoughts of self-harm. But my understanding is some of the testimony I've seen and some of the evidence introduced, Jacob, is that, again, they understood this, they were clear-eyed about it, and they sort of understood that this kind of provoking negative feelings was part of the kind of ensnarement and trap of maximizing user minutes.
I mean, this is absolutely right. What we saw in this trial and why it's such a revelation is that you get discovery. You get the kinds of documentation from inside this company that a reporter only dreams of receiving. And so the jury got to see how this company does the research internally that points out big dangers, right? How it talks about kids when it thinks no one is listening. And that's why you get to this place of understanding just how much of a commodity these children are for this company, and how the balance between the money you can make and the danger you might be posing to them is one that is actively discussed inside the company. The other thing I'll point out here, Chris, is, this is not a textbook sort of perfect plaintiff, right? This kid, described having some very serious challenges at home, once described her mother as abusive. This is a kid that you would imagine, and Meta went to great lengths, as did YouTube, to point out, this is, this isn't our fault that she's this way. But what the jury seems to have done here is flip that on its head and said, well, her mental health problems were exacerbated by this. And so that suddenly introduces a kind of liability across these many cases that we've never really seen before.
Juliana, do you feel, as someone who has had to spend a lot of time thinking about this and been following this case and organizing, that there is something changing in just sort of social awareness, in the culture, in the kind of way people are viewing their relationship to the platforms, the power the platforms have, that feels like it's building? Does it feel that way to you?
Oh, very much so. I mean, when we started this out, no one was really talking about this issue. We were not aware when these platforms were, out there and made available to our children. We didn't know. We didn't know how dangerous they were. No one warned us. There was no warning. And it was impossible to know that. Who would have thought that that's what was behind all of this? That they were trying to get these kids on their platform, keep them there for long, so they could get more advertisers and make more money. I mean, it's absurd. And so, very much so, we have been working out here, that's what our organization does, Parents Rise, is to speak to parents, speak to survivor parents, inform them on the business model, and then get them involved. So that's exactly why we're here, and it has definitely been changing.
Yeah, it's been remarkable to watch how quickly are things changing. Today, a landmark day, I think, in that trajectory. Jacob Ward, Juliana Arnold, thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.